Alright, hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to do the third episode in the Leviathan's Hybernia series, the SCRAPS project series. So today I'm going to do two playthroughs of it. Well, we're going to watch the same playthrough twice. The first one, I'm just going to play through it with no commentary. Just going to let you guys observe the game, and then after that, I will go through and we'll rewatch that exact same playthrough, and I will add commentary and talk and narrate some of the things that we're seeing as we're playing through it. Um, so as you watch the first playthrough, try and pick out elements of the level that draw your eye and attention to where you're supposed to go. Different leading lines or different uses of shape language and different things that you feel like were put there or that help guide the player from one place to next. Um, but let's just go ahead and jump right in. When we get back, we're gonna go straight to the silent playthrough, and then from there into the commentary playthrough. Let's just jump in. Alright. So, as you can see, I'm not very good at shooter games. Took me quite a while to get through that section, but now let's go through it. I'm going to do another separate playthrough. And we'll go through and I'll illustrate and comment on various things. So first off, the player starts off right here, and as you can see, there's a lot of leading lines that draw the player's eye forward down the platform, right? We got these rails, we got the grain of the wood, right? Ship, something's drawing your eyes this direction. And if we look around, we can follow. Oh, okay, we're going thatwardly of a direction. We have some interesting lights that is a stark contrast between the dark behind it and the bright up in front here. And so that kind of draws your eye there as well. So the player heads forward through here and can explore the area if they choose, but there's not really a whole lot to find except for just admiring the scenery. And then the player will enter through here and trigger the handler area. So as you'll see in the next video, that is just an area of volume where the player just hits that and it will trigger. And then the player just follows the pathway around. And as you saw in the previous playthrough, I took a little bit of time and I tried to explore almost every inch of the map, where we looked at these two side areas that don't really have anything, but they were just added to allow the player to explore a little bit if they wanted to. If I were to expand this out, I would put some more collectible items down here, or have a zombie or something over off in the corner here. But then, as the player comes up and triggers this area, the lighting comes into effect here, and your eye is immediately drawn to this very bright section right here, followed by the door, followed by the red. And the red highlights kind of the puzzle area over here. So this whole little apparatus here just draws your eye right to it. And so as you come over here, oh look, there's a door. Let's see if we can get through the door. Well, we can't use that button yet. So let's look at this. And so with this is the introductory level mechanic of the entire process. So this is where we're teaching the player how to move the column, how the interact works, how to solve puzzles like this, so that later on in the level, when they become relevant, or when they encounter this again, they'll be able to solve more complex puzzles. For example, here, the player will be able to learn that, oh, if they move the column over the top of these dark boxes, then it will reset its position. Also, if the player makes a mistake and they accidentally try and move the column outside of the bounds of the puzzle, it will also revert to its original location. And we'll go ahead and look at all the logic, and I'll show you how the coding for all of that works in the next video. And so if the player moves the column onto the color platform that corresponds with the color of the pipe, and it will connect. And now if you notice that change, we're standing here working this puzzle, we click that into place, and we'll see that that light now has a red ring, or that button now has a red ring around it, indicating that we can go and interact with it and open the doors to the elevator here. Alright, so the elevator comes down to this button that opens this gate, kind of a freight elevator sort of a setup, and the player will enter into this main facility corridor area. From here, let's look at what guides your eye, what grabs your attention. First off, these pipes. great big massive things that lead to the end of the hallway. And we got this one pipe that comes across with the center pipe that comes up. Your eye is just naturally drawn to that door at the end. It's the largest thing in the hall. It's lit. It's almost the best lit thing in the area. It has the little blue. It has the little blue icon there, and so all of these different aspects were specifically put in here to draw the player's eye to that door, big door at the end of the hallway. But the player cannot actually get in to that door. And so the player will have to explore. Now, what's the next best lit thing in this area except for the elevator? Well, it's this door right here. And if you look, you can see that some of these pipes on the end also have a little bit of a gap there, right at that where that door is. And so a little bit of reflection, the leading lines that guide your eye to the end of the hallway kind of break at this door. So we go and we try and open this door, but we also don't have the key to that door. So then we have two other options left. This very dimly lit door in this back corner, or this first door off to the side right here. And another thing about this door too is while it might not be as brightly lit as that door, it has some advantages over that one. First off, this door frame, it's a bright point that draws your eye to it. And secondary, or the other thing is this window. You can see through it and there's motion. And so that also will help catch your eye and draw it into a thatwardly direction, indicating that this is in fact the first area that the player is intending to go into, or is supposed to go. Player will come in here. There's a door at the far end. Notice the motion here, the motion of this top screen, kind of guiding the player into that back corner a little bit. So the bottom screen that you can see the best from out here pulls you in. The top screen puts you into that corner. We got this pipe that's another leading line into that door. So the player will enter this door. That pipe continues on through to this door over here. Notice how much better this, how well lit this door is, and how kind of it's dim over here, dark. Brings your attention directly to it. You open this door, and now we have our first combat scenario where they are locked safely away. The player will be able to, probably, if they don't suck like me, dispatch both of these and open the gate. Alternatively, if they get overeager, they can just open the gate and then have to fight the zombies. Collect the key. Right, notice the pipe comes towards the cells, and this cell is much better lit than that cell, and it's right in front. We got this button that guides your eye right to it, and so the player is kind of guided into this cell where they pick up the barracks key. On their way back, the player will be more likely to notice this other door over here, and that gives the player an opportunity for a little bit of exploration. The player comes over, opens that door up, and they find the armory, which was very well done by its creator, who I will get to in just a second. And you'll be able to load up and fill your magazine and juice up on health if you lost any in that combat. So the areas that we've seen so far were originally created by Tyler Roberts. He did a really good job with this area. He built this elevator, and he also built the buttons for this gate and the gate itself. He put most of all of this in place, and he was the key designer for this outside section here. And so what he did was sketched all of this out, put up the cliffs, textured them, put all of this planking in place, designed those little side areas. He built all of this, and the only help that he had out here really was a little bit of debugging and that I did for him, trying to get the starting volumes squared away. And also it was I added the moon, but he was the one that actually set the time to be at night with the stars. Originally, it was more well lit, probably about noonish. It didn't have as dark of and intensive a vibe until he came in and just dropped that in there, and it was amazing. Very well done. This starting area is probably one of my favorite areas with all of this shipwrecks and the rocks floating out here, and how you can see the texture underneath the water. No, he really did a good job for a very breathtaking and eye-catching starting area here. I helped him rig in this puzzle, and I added a couple of things. I added this pillar and this pipe, and the drip effect, particle effect to the pipe right here. But other than that, this starting area was completely his. I did a couple of minor retexturing and polishing since he had it last, but for the most part, this is just straight up his work, which is very well done. Down here, this is also hit Tyler's area, and it was a little bit flat in the main hallway. There was a couple of things here. The first thing that I did, I came in and I redid the lighting. Dimmed it quite a bit. It was much brighter initially, and I went in ahead and added all of these pipes in. I retextured all of the doors in the level. I think. Pretty sure I did that after. No, we did that before the final version. I retextured this. I don't even remember. Maybe that was original. I don't know. I added in these pipes and I redid the lighting. I cleaned up this key panel here. Made it a little bit brighter, a little bit more eye-catching. And I added the motion texture to these screens. I added in this pipe, and I redid the lighting for the entire rest of pretty much the entire level. I went through and I relit. I also added this table. But other than that, Tyler did all of this, and it's amazing how much that he was able to get in here. Mostly all on his own, and he was able to help out and troubleshoot some of the other areas as well. So yeah, all three of these areas was his responsibility, and he did really well with it. So moving on into the next section, this was Jason's barracks and mess hall, which is this door right here that we were just talking about. So you walk in here, and a couple of things are going on. You've got bright colors and shiny over here, drawing your eye forward. Notice all the tables are kind of sitting at an angle and a slant. And they're kind of angled, drawing your eye towards the middle. And then there's that light, that flickering light. There's a combination motion and illumination that just brings you right to that far corner of the room. Where you hit the checkpoint. that's them apples. So coming through here, it was Jason's idea. All of the doors that were knocked off of their hinges, that was an idea that Jason came up with that he really liked, and we all really liked, and we kind of implemented it in several other places. That was really amazing. So originally, Jason's area, this barracks area, was much larger, but we cut it back due to time constraints and excessive space. We didn't really need this much area dedicated to barracks and all of that. And so me, Jason, and Cameron jumped in here and threw a whole bunch of work into these areas. I think Cameron sketched out the basic layout. I redid the lighting and a bunch of the texturing, and then Jason came in and added a bunch of flavor texts, or not flavor texts, but details and things like that to it. Cameron was the one that supplied the idea for these great big military-style bunks, racks, instead of like bunk beds, which was the original that we had. And between Cameron and Jason, I'm not really sure how they did it, because they were the ones that mostly did this area. They added these little nooks to sneak back through, so you can try and avoid the combat. I came in and I lifted this door. It was just laying right here. I lifted the door, leaned it up against this, and I added these two shelves here to allow the player to crouch and kind of come through here and have a little bit more of a stealthy time through here. But yeah, no, between the three of us, we really did a good job on this. Jason also went and brought in a lot of our final textures. He didn't add them to the individual objects so much, but he went and collected them and then added them to this area. And since the team stopped working on it, the only things that I've really done in here, like I was saying, was that collapsed door over in the back there. Rearranged the tables a little bit, rearranged this room, put that TV in, again redid the lighting. But other than that, this is all Jason's work, which is really nice. I got to admit, I got to give my entire team a lot of props, because we did pretty dang well, in my opinion. Look at me, I'm actually doing okay this playthrough. Somehow. Oh yeah, I also added that guy in there. Just because I thought that would be a little bit fun. But yeah, no, look at the... Stand by. There we go. Yeah, look at me. I can do combat now. All of a sudden. Anyway, the counter and the mirror and the stalls, all of this was Jason's setup. The shower areas, he did really, really well. And I like how he represented these things with random objects. Like this was a shelving unit that we had, and he kind of set it up to be more of like a partition fence. And then he built this little tiny pipe thing that represents a shower head pretty darn well. But yeah, no, everybody did really, really well. So forgive me if I'm really happy with my team. I'm sorry about that. Not really. They were fantastic. So yeah, another key card in here. Another thing that I want to point your attention to is guiding through this area. Right, so this area you kind of have to explore your way through. And then when you explore it, don't worry about him, he's broken. as you explore your way through, you find your way to this room. And I paused in the other video. I wanted to let you guys have a moment to check this room out, which worked out really well. Look at which door of these two is illuminated. That one. You also have this TV screen, and the patterning is moving in that direction. And so, because it's moving in that direction, the player's eye is going to be drawn to this door here, and that is where that key card is hidden. And that's really the reason why the player has to come into here is to get that key card. And there's nothing down this hallway or in this bathroom area that is worth getting at all. It's just there for explorative purposes. So anyway, and then with that key card being very brightly the glowing red draws the player's eye right to it, and there's a little bit more down here that the player can get if they want, but is totally optional and unneeded. And so then they head back out to the main hallway. And once out in the main hallway, the player will be able to and so the player comes back out to this area here and now has the refinery key. So notice how this door here is unlit. It's distant. It's not attention is not drawn to it. And that's because that whole room, as you saw in the previous video, is designed to serve no purpose other than a skill check. This whole room is full of so many enemies that it's there so that the player can really test themselves in a very strenuous environment with a very small amount of reward. It's just an extra exploratory area with some very difficult and rewarding combat. But it is not a part of the critical path, and the player can just skip that door entirely if they so choose once they get all the keys. And now with the refinery key, we can access this panel here, and the door will open. But since I'm talking about all of the team members, this whole office area was Zach's area. He was responsible for setting all of this up. He did pretty darn well. He was working a full-time job, and so it was difficult for him to allocate quite as much time as some of the rest of us. And oftentimes when we were working at it was the hours that he had to be at work. But this whole area that I went through, you saw it earlier, so I'm not going to bother really triggering the combat here, but was left mostly the way that he had it last. The only thing that I did really was retextured. I moved like 2 walls around over in that back corner, and then I retextured the ceiling and the floor because the wall, ceiling, and floor used to all kind of be the same texture, and so it just kind of blended together really well. So I just differentiated the ceiling and the floor from everything else. And then you can see these screens that I just added the moving texture to again. But other than that, this was exactly how he left it. I just felt like this area was very solidly done as well, especially given the amount of time that he had in which to work on it. But this is the refinery, and I can talk the most about the refinery building process because I was responsible for it. This was the area that was allotted to me to have to construct. So I'm going to try and get to a place where we can get a little bit better of a vantage point on it. Can't really get a very good one. But anyway, I put all of this together, and the idea behind this area was a kind of a rundown, falling apart oil refinery. So I wanted as many pipes and tanks and clutter and junk as I could without making it too much that the player gets lost and they don't know where they're supposed to go, and what they're supposed to do. And so I tried to be very deliberate about the pathing through the refinery and the different things that draw the player in. So coming through this door, the first thing that I really wanted to grab the player's attention was this pipe. So I put a very bright light here, kind of angling out, illuminating that pipe. Everything else is super dim that you can kind of explore over there. But the critical path is, I tried to go all in with lighting. Not only is it lighting there, but we've also got these side lines here, leading lines in the form of these the security fences or safety fences, right? More safety fences up here, and also the illumination inside the pipe, kind of bringing the player's attention in here, and so the player will actually slide down the pipe into the next area. And here there is two different things that I illuminated strongly to try and draw the player attention to. The first one is this pool of oil right here, because I wanted the player to experience oil, and as you can see in the previous playthrough, I jumped into the oil and it killed me. Somehow it sent me all the way up to the ceiling. Normally, for those of you that aren't aware, oil doesn't normally launch you into the sky. That's not a normal part of oil's physics. But that happens, apparently, in Unreal Engine, occasionally. So anyway, I drew that player's attention over here for that. And then the only other really lit thing at all through here is that door right there, which is the direction the player is supposed to end up going. Everything else, all of the other areas, and you can kind of see over the top of these tanks here that there's more back there, but it's all blocked off, and so the player can't actually access any of that space. But it's there just for decorative background purposes. And so the player will then be drawn into this area. Now through this door, this was Cameron's area. He sketched out the overall layout of this place, and he added in stairs and a bunch of these, all these security fencing, and he set these all in place, which we don't have the key for. But due to some last minute stuff, he ended up having to not being able to finish his stuff or his area, and so me and Zach jumped in on it, and we added a bunch of these decorations in here. This was mostly Zach, and I went through and I replaced the walls. I left the layout the same, but I replaced the wall meshes because Cameron had used floor, or a floor mesh instead of a wall mesh, and so to make the textures be the same as the rest of the walls in the facility, I just went through and replaced them with walls. And then after the final project was completed, again, I went through and redid all the lighting, but I also did an extensive overhaul of the room behind that door, which I will get into in a minute. But let's go back to level design here for a second. You walk in here, and there's dark. That catches your eye. Dark and then light in the distance. And we've kind of talked that is a tool that game designers will use to tell players that there's more down there. Kind of literally the light at the end of the tunnel sort of a deal. But then if you follow that and you head on up, there is this that you don't have the key card for. So then you have to go back down, and this door is a well-lit door, and here we are. We enter this room. So originally this room was wide open. It was just a large monitoring room, kind of similar to how these are. This was all done by Zach. I just added the texture to the screens here, at least for this setup here. But I took the entire rest of the room and I added these pipes. I added all of these electrical boxes. So I was trying to feel, this room was large, it was empty, there wasn't a lot going on here, there was nothing really to do in this room, it was just a lot of empty space. And I wanted to make it a little bit more immersive for the player. And so I kind of turned it into a hybrid control room, maintenance room, and electrical room. So I just added all of these breaker boxes to the game. And some zombies that the player can take advantage of the fact that they're broken. Apparently. Anyway, get this little bit of a maze with some combat for the player to navigate to make this area more more involved and less just kind of meandering. So that's where you get that maintenance key, is down at the end of the tunnel here. And all of that I did after the month that we were actually working on it, and has been done just as I've been idly messing around with it. And so the player will then, with this new maintenance key card, interact with this. Down. That's like a little lift elevator that was designed by Cameron. And so now we are upstairs. And you'll notice that this door, I kind of skipped over this door here. It's rusted. It's very rusted, even more so than all the other ones. And it actually does not open. It's just rusted shut. So the rusted doors like that, I tried to texture them in a way so that the player wouldn't get frustrated that it wouldn't open, because, oh, it's just rusted shut and it doesn't actually open. And communicate that this is the door through which the player ought to enter. And we re-enter the refinery. You can see we came through this door. This is the big door that we came in through the first time. There's the pipe. We're just on the other side of that fence now. And as we enter here, your eye is kind of drawn to all of this, but you can't get through there. You can't get through there. So you turn and you look, and you see distant light over here. And green reflection. So you're like, oh, hey, let's go this way. And now you see even more leading lines. You got this great big one right here coming down. You've got lines coming across on this fence post here. We've got lights in the distance. And as we come through here, player's eye is caught by the yellow and the button here and the puzzle. If the player decides to kind of just walk past it, they'll discover the dead end that leads to this ramp that is shut. So the puzzle has to be solved, and that's really all that there is. Open that, and we solve the puzzle. Now, the other thing that I added, or that I've changed since the original version, was I changed these columns. If you noticed in the slideshow of the previous video, it had these columns all illuminated, like this column was all yellow, you know. But I changed it into movable pipes. It was something that was discussed as we were developing the actual level as a team. but I didn't have time to implement that. It was my vision for it, but I couldn't get that finished before the project was supposed to be due. And so since then, I've gone ahead and added that feature back in. Not back in, but I've added it in where we're trying to line this pipe up with this receptacle. As you can see, it's dripping oil out of the pipe there. And so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna come over here and do this puzzle. You remember I was talking earlier about how this was the last puzzle, the red one, was the introductory level mechanic. This is considered the practice level. And we were told to follow the IPM design, which is introductory, practice, and then mastery, where it gets steadily more complex. So anyway, sorry, lots of things going on. I completed this puzzle. You hear the evacuation going off. Now that this pipe is completed, we've also switched on this pump, and now there's oil coming out of this broken pipe. Normally, it would have gone into this tank here, but unfortunately, the tank has been knocked over. So now oil is just coming up through here. And you can see that now we've got this oil level that is actually rising. It is stopped at the moment, but now this whole basement level is flooded now that we've completed this puzzle. And you hear the sirens going off, indicating that there's issues. All the lights are going, right? So we're going to continue our way on over here, and you'll see that this gate is now open. So we can come on up here. Notice the leading lines through the catwalk, not that you can really go anywhere else. Alright, so at the top here, this is another instance of a lot of player guidance. There's a pipe right here that comes across, brings your eye to these pipes that go around the corner over there. With this light, it's kind of illuminating these barrels, one placed here, kind of leading your eye around that corner there. So the player will come and do exactly just that, navigate around that pipe there, following these pipes here, sort of like in the Jurassic Park movie, the first one where Dr. Sadler is going to switch the power back on, and Malcolm and Hammond are giving her directions over the radio. Hammond is having her take lefts and rights, and Malcolm is just like, look at the pipes, follow that. And that's actually a very popular example of how game designers will lead players through the levels, ironically. Even if the player doesn't consciously notice it, it's kind of a subconscious sort of a deal until you point it out to the player, in which point they're like, oh. So like, let's come right through here. What is the guiding, what indicates to you where we're supposed to go from here? So there's a puzzle sitting right there. But what really is grabbing your eye right here, right now? The great big glowing spinny thing, right? We got motion, we've got illumination, we've got noise. That's all just kind of, this is a point of interest. We want to go and examine and look at this object. And so the way to do that is through this closed gate. Well, look at that. We've got another puzzle to solve, you know? And so the players will go ahead and solve that puzzle. And as they do, more oil fountains will show up over here. So with each column that's put into place, one of those is going to start spilling oil out of it. So we can go ahead and start doing this. So we got to fit. This is the first puzzle also as the mastery level mechanic. We've got 3 different colors going on, and so we got to line the green with the green, the red with the red, and the blue with the blue, which is pretty self-explanatory, but it adds another level of complication. So with each puzzle that the player solves, they're able to feel a sense of satisfaction of having done something more than they did last time, something more complicated, and it gives the player a sense of accomplishment and progress. There we go. Another thing that I want to point out and talk about now that while it's on my mind, is user feedback. So when the player takes an action, right? You know that you're hearing the sounds that are coming. Each sound indicates to the player that they did something correct, right? Or that they something has changed. And when they do something wrong, we have a different sound that plays, right? And that indicates, oh, something different, a negative feedback, right? Now, as I complete one of these puzzles, notice how the console goes dark, indicating that you can't, there's nothing to be gained from interacting with this terminal further, right? See, it just goes dark, it loses the color, and I go to interact with this, and it doesn't move anything. And so that's another indicator that a lot of people won't consciously recognize. It's a tool that game designers will use. In the next video, I'll talk a little bit about illusion and how a lot of the things that the player think that they're so clever for, or so clever about, or that they think that they're seeing, is an illusion that is created by a good game designer. And so with the completion of that puzzle, we can see that the oil fountains are going here, and we can now enter this area. So from here, we're drawn to this doodad here. Whoop, that deals damage if you get hit by it. And you're also drawn to these lights and the closed gate. Eventually, on exploring, the player will see this button here, and that stops the spinning and opens it up. Now the player can jump in and retrieve the power core. Now I'm just going to run through this. No, I'm not. When they retrieve the power core, which is what the source of those energy readings, they walk along this catwalk. Now notice how these red alarm lights are kind of guiding the path. They're showing you the way that you're supposed to go. There's not any that way, but there are more that way. And as you're going, this lava level, not lava level, the oil level is rising behind you, and if it catches you, it will drown the player, and you will have to start again. We're gonna run through here. We just hit a trigger volume that I'll talk about in the next episode, and now the oil is going a lot faster. And so I'm going to run through here, following the lights, and out into the surface where I added that. So I was responsible for the refinery. I did a lot of work polishing up some of the other areas. This end zone area here was also Cameron's brainchild, and I did a little bit of work on that, but not a whole lot. I mostly just modified the ending area just so that I could pan towards the icon here. I added the moon. That was something that did not exist before I got to it. Here, let me get this sirens off here. I added the like I was saying, I added the moon. I added the icon and symbol. I removed some of the level end stuff. There was another handler conclusion. Congratulations, scrapper, sort of a deal. And there was a little house, a little shack that the player was going to go into where it would actually trigger the level end. But I modified that mostly because I wanted to add that symbol onto it. But yeah, no, this was the final project and then some of about a month and a half's worth of work. A month's worth for 5 people, and then about another 2.5 weeks of my continuing to play around with it and tinker. Overall, this was a really fun project to work on. I had a lot of fun doing it, even though there was a lot of really stressful moments, and a couple of times I kind of just threw my hands up and I had to rely on my teammates to be like, no, it's okay, calm down, and then ended up fixing it. But despite the stress, it was a really fun experience to try and to see a level actually come together in 3 days, and then to just continue improving it and polishing it after that. It's a lot of fun, and I really am finding that I have a passion for level design. Um, just the whole idea of creating a world and for the players to interact with. Like, a lot of times when I at least think of game design, that's what you think of, going through Skyrim, right? And actually building Skyrim, not worrying about having to deal with all the mechanics and the weapons and the numbers and all of the junk, but like just building the world is just something that I feel would just be really fun, and not just in Skyrim, but all of the different games. Level design really some of the most fun that I've had throughout my schooling, honestly, so far. Um, but anyway, that will conclude my kind of review here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I will catch all of you guys next time.